What's up, fam? It's your girl Sherry. This is Obsidian Text and Tangents. Welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to tell y'all about the books that I read in October and November. And I read two books between October and November. One book in October, one book in November, but they were both amazing because they were by two of my favorite authors, N.K. Jemisin and Octavia Butler. Okay, put some respect on their names. So this is my October and November. This is my October and November wrap up. So first I read The Broken Kingdom by N.K. Jemisin. If you don't know who N.K. Jemisin is a New York Times best-selling author of speculative fiction, duh. So she writes short stories and novels. She lives in Brooklyn. In 2018, she was the first author ever to win 3 straight Hugo Awards for the Broken Earth trilogy, which was my introduction into N.K. Jemisin's writing, and The Fifth Kingdom is my favorite book. I know it's part of a trilogy, so that I should probably say it's my favorite trilogy. It is also my favorite trilogy. Maybe I'll say it's my favorite trilogy, and that'll leave space for somebody else to be my favorite book. But honestly, as I read more and more, she can always be usurped that position, because it's already hard for me to choose favorites anyway. So eventually I'm just going to have a lot of favorites. Anyways, back to the review. So back to NK, actually. She's also won like Nebula Awards and Locust Awards and a bunch of other awards. She's just simply amazing. If you've never heard her speak, Google her Hugo acceptance speech. So that is NK. Fabulous woman. One day, hope to meet her. The Broken Kingdoms is the book that I read, which is the second novel in the Inheritance trilogy. The first book is called The 100,000 Kingdoms, and the premise, essentially, for the trilogy is gods and mortals, power and love, deaths and revenge, which for the first 2 books, very on point with that tagline. So the 100,000 Kingdoms, which again is the first book, is really about gods dwelling among mortals, and one powerful and corrupt family rules the earth. And in walks this heir to the throne, unexpected, to see who comes out on top, because the current ruling king is elderly and is about to die. And so you have this very traditional political heir story. You have this very typical heir story on one way of thinking, but then it immediately gets smashed down by this speculative fiction about gods living among us, and this power and this love and this death and revenge. And it was quite good. It was like a whole whirlwind. So book 2, which is the one I read in October, The Broken Kingdom, picks up 10 years after the events of the first book, and it's told from the perspective of Oriso. She is a artisan that is blind, like sells her goods on like artisan vendor things on the street. She meets this dude, we're gonna call him Shiny. She stumbles up into an alley and someone's dead, and then a whole bunch of like murder mystery, God stuff, crazy revenge, love, but it's so good. I'm not saying I'm specifically being vague because I don't want to give anything from either book away, considering I read a sequel. But top notch. Because this is also a wrap up and not an in-depth review, I'm not gonna go too much into either one of these books I read. BT dubs. So, The Broken Kingdom, if you haven't been able to tell from my spiel, is a 5-star read for me. Five stars. Okay, if you don't remember, my star rating system includes 1, setting and world building, full stars. Full stars. Full stars, okay? The world that is weaved. And then the way we go back and learn about the other stuff that happened to make this stuff happen. Like, you thought you knew what happened after the events in book 1. But then book 2 is like, oh, this was kind of some motivating factors behind this stuff that, like, it's still awful, but it wasn't because of what you thought it was because. Anybody who's read this series, mind you, I'm finishing this trilogy. My goal is to finish it before the New Year's because my loan from the library just became available. But I'm gonna finish it first, and then we need to debrief. Everybody who's read this trilogy, drop me a message in the comments below. So next up for my star rating system, characters. These characters are characters, okay? Talk about writing characters that are exceptional in their humanity. And I mean that from like the greatness and beauty of humanity, and then the extremely deeply flawed nature of humanity. And in saying that, I'm also speaking to the gods, because in this telling, like many tellings, the humans are made in the image of the gods, right? So where them characteristics come from? Okay? Like parent, like children, all right? Anyways, I ain't even gonna get into it, but I really liked what I saw happening. If I say names and it gives stuff away about book 1, so okay, so I'm just gonna skip over all the character names. I'll do a full in-depth, like I'll do a full review of the trilogy that will have a bunch of spoilers so I can get this off my chest. So anyone who's read all the books, stay tuned for that one. Next, themes. What I want to say about this, my top 3 themes for this book would be redemption, forgiveness, and love. Those are the top 3. There's other themes, but I think for me in this book, those were the top 3, and it explored what those mean. What are the requirements for that? Like, what happens when you don't get one of those? What's required to achieve that? You know, and it's a good time. 5 or star number 4 is my overall enjoyment. My overall enjoyment was a lot. I thoroughly enjoyed. And then number 5, the 5th star, is would I purchase or recommend. And I am 1 book away from finishing this. I would be very surprised if NK like murdered this series for me in book 3. So I am planning on acquiring it. Hopefully I won't have to purchase it because my birthday is in March, and I'm going to hint to people that they should buy this for me. This one, and I don't have the Broken Earth trilogy that I mentioned before, so friends who are listening, just saying, if you're available. Those are ideas. So yeah, that is what I read in October. It was a great time. I listened to it on audiobook. I really enjoyed the audiobook of it. I look forward to when I can follow along in the print version. So next up is November. Okay, I already told y'all I read Octavia Butler in November. I think part of the reason why I'm just so excited is one, because I'm hungry and I'm ready to eat. I know I'm eating when I get done recording. And two, because I read my 2 favorite authors and so I'm just talking about those 2 during this video. So I'm just like, eh. So Octavia E. Butler, you don't know who she is? You don't know about her? Okay. You've got to learn about her, but I'll tell you a little bit. So Octavia E. Butler is a renowned, speculative science fiction author who has won many awards for her novels and has written a great many things that is currently very talked about, including Parable of the Sower, and Parable of the Talents, neither of which, those are a duology, neither of which I've read. But also she's written Kindred, which I own, the prose version and the graphic novel adaptation of, which used to be my favorite novel until I read 5th season. Her works also include Bloodchild, which is a collection of short stories, which are bananas, which I talk about on this channel. Maybe I'll leave a link or something in the description box below to that video. But if you want to hear me spaz out about that a little bit, I would advise watching that video. So yeah, she transitioned from this earthly plane in February of 2006, and she actually spent most of her career like in obscurity from like commercial recognition, because people wasn't recognizing her greatness, and it wasn't, it wasn't selling like that. Probably because she writes about Black injustice, like climate change, power, the patriarchy, political disparity, stuff that is becoming much more popular to talk about and discuss and digest now than it would have been previously. But she is getting, her works has started to rise in popularity towards the end of her life. And I'm thrilled to see other people really enjoy her work. I personally didn't discover her until 2015 when I picked up Kindred, because I was just very attracted to the cover and the description on the back. And I read it and I was like, fell in love with her writing and her storytelling. Even though Kindred is like, it gave me like knots in my stomach. I was so tense. The anxiety. Anyways, so that is who she is. That is a little bit about her. I read Wild Seed. Wild Seed. My God. So Wild Seed is, where is it? Okay. Wild Seed I own. Actually, before I talk about it, I'll give a shout out to the OEB Slow Read. So if you do not know, Jerry over at Onyx Pages, Tati over at Musical Tati, and Isis over at the online bookstore Sister Sci-Fi are organizing a Octavia E. Butler slow read, in which we are reading through all of her works over the course of the next 2 or so years. It's started already. So we are currently on book 3. Everyone's supposed to be reading Mind of My Mind before the group live show discussion at the end of January. But for November, the live show was to read the first of this series called the Patternist series, correct? Yes. I have the omnibus bind up of all of the books in the series called Seed to Harvest, but you can see the first book is Wild Seed, and then it's Mind of My Mind. So that is what I read, and that's kind of why I was reading it. I just note, have not read any of the descriptions to any of these books in this series, so I am getting all of the story as a surprise when I read, so please don't put any spoilers in the comments below. But yes, so this is what I was reading. I'm just gonna have it next to my face for a little minute while I talk about it. Wild Seed is about Doro and Anyanwu. Doro is this entity who changes clothes the way, or Doro is this entity that changes bodies the way someone changes clothes. You know, like if you had a compulsion to do so, and you took pleasure out of it, whether you liked it or not, you had to change clothes. And when he changes that body, he also kills the host. So also to note about Doro is he's been alive for centuries, millennia potentially. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but I'm pretty sure millennia. And then you have Anyanwu, who is a shape-shifting matriarch who's lived for centuries and keeps watching her people in her tribes die and grow old. Doro finds Anyanwu during one of his trips to the continent of Africa, ends up taking her away with him to the colonies of America with a combination of promising her children who will never die, and threatening the ones that are alive. So imagine the relationship that ensues afterwards. That is what this book is about. And that is all I'll say about it. It is a wild ride. I repeat, a wild ride. It was at times difficult to read, which is very Octavia Butler. But it was simultaneously so excellently written, and the story was so unfolded out, so invested. And I'm really thrilled and scared as I move through the rest of the series. So, what did I rate this book? I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I've been going back and forth whether or not I should rate this book 4.5 stars or 5 stars. And here's why. I freaking hate Doro and Anyanwu. I don't like them, but that's also not essential for me, the book, to be excellent. But I do think I'm gonna go with 4.5 stars just because like their level of themness just distracted from my overall enjoyment a little bit. Just took my overall enjoyment down a smidge. So my review. 1, full stars for setting, okay? Set a scene, okay? Taking us from where Anyanwu is from all the way to the Americas. The whole description and building up around Wheatley and the world building around how Anyanwu's power, like, I'm gonna call it powers for lack of a better word, but how her powers work, how Doro's powers work, and like how the other individuals who are special, the seed, whether or not they're wild seed or cultivated by Doro, how those special abilities manifest and work. It was so great. Especially, I love all the descriptions from Anyanwu's point of view about how Anyanwu's ability works. It's so well done. Then we have characters, and I done already told you that Doro and Anyanwu get on my nerve. But those characters were developed very well, and they stuck to their characterizations, okay? Which was frustrating for moi, but also made the story make a lot of sense and kept going. But I'm irritated. Also, though, we had Isaac. He was cool. We had Thomas. We had Wake, girl. Then we had my phone said, you better hurry up recording because we're about to run out of space. But then we had Stefan and Helen are my favorite. Just BT dubs when y'all reading it. Those two is the faves. Full star for characters development. Then we have themes. Okay, I just want to listen. This is not how I set it up, so I'm not going to. But I want to give more than a full star for themes because the themes, excelente. So we had themes of power struggle. We had themes of the ethics and actuality around bioengineering / eugenics. We had breeding, gross. Then we had slavery / the ownership of people, also gross. We had things around like what makes you human, what makes you a god, like struggle. That's just a few. I'm not gonna keep going, but the themes were hidden. Okay, and when I say they was hidden, I mean when you read them, they smacked you in the face and gave me personally a stomach ache, and I had to take a break. But I was like, people are terrible, and I don't want to think about this, but also this is so good. And then the fourth star is my overall enjoyment. I've already told y'all about that, so this is where I'm going to give half star at. And then number 5 is would I buy or recommend? Obviously, your girl already bought it, okay? And I am happy that I purchased it. Zero buyer's remorse. And I will recommend everyone to read it because I think everyone should read Octavia E. Butler. She's amazing. And the commentary and discussion around some of those themes like slavery / the ownership of people, breeding and epigenetics and genetically engineering, and the power struggle, patriarchy, what things you value, what else? Post-colonialism and neo-colonialism. It's really a discussion that needs to be had. And I think that because it's told through fiction, for those who don't like to really face the truth or need that message to be delivered a little bit differently, it could be a good starting point to think about those concepts, think about those themes, and to start a discussion. Also, I love Octavia E. Butler, and she's the best. Those are my thoughts on my reads. I'm super happy with the reads that I had in October and November. And I really hope that I can finish the last book in the Inheritance trilogy before the year's end, so I can say I read that entire trilogy during this year. And yeah, so I'm gonna go eat dinner because I am hungry, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.